Beef prices have soared to all-time highs, with many families feeling the squeeze. Economics correspondent Paul Solman looks at the factors driving prices higher.
As September begins, food prices in America will not be the same anymore. Sharp increases, shortages, and the numbers on the shelves could make you flinch every time you go grocery shopping. August is slipping away in the blink of an eye, but few realize a broad price adjustment is quietly gearing up to explode at Walmart, Costco, and other major retail chains. And it will not wait for anyone. Have you ever had to put something back in your cart just because it suddenly cost a few extra dollars with no warning? If you are one of the many consumers trying to juggle inflation, tariffs, and ever-growing grocery bills, then this video is for you. Here are 5 foods you should buy and stock up on right now, if you can, before their prices take off once September hits. This is not a scare tactic. It is the most important piece of advice we can give you at this moment. Number 1, ground beef. Last month, a pound of ground beef at Walmart cost $4.99. Just a few days ago, that same number shot up to $7.99. Same tray, same weight, same brand, but the price feels like it just went through a storm. Have you ever picked up a pack of beef only to put it back down? Not because you did not need it, but because the price tag felt like a slap in the face. And then you ask yourself, what on earth is happening to beef? The answer is not tied to one supermarket, but to the entire United States. Ground beef prices are now at their highest level ever since the CPI started tracking in the 1980s. In the past year alone, the price of ground beef has climbed another 11.5% with no sign of slowing down. So what is pushing prices higher? It is not just one thing, but a whole chain reaction of nature, people, and policy. First, supply is shrinking fast. For more than a decade, demand for beef in the U.S. has kept climbing, from family meals to restaurants to the high-protein food trend. But supply is drying up. Since April 2025, U.S. beef production has fallen 7 to 8% compared to the same time last year because the cattle herd has shrunk dramatically. We now have the smallest number of cattle since 1961, a direct result of prolonged drought across major ranching states. With pastures dried up, farmers cannot feed their herds. The price of hay, a staple feed, has jumped from $120 per ton to nearly $240 per ton. Faced with that reality, ranchers have been forced to sell off cattle just to cut their losses. Think about it. To keep a breeding cow, a rancher has to weigh whether to hold on for the long-term payoff of calves or sell it now for record-high prices. With input costs skyrocketing, many are choosing cash today over the promise of tomorrow. But the story does not end there. With domestic supply shrinking, imported beef should have been the safety net. But it is not. New trade policies have blocked that flow. The U.S. has banned imports of cattle from Mexico, which used to supply about 1.3 million head a year due to disease concerns. On top of that, a 50% tariff on Brazilian beef, one of the largest import sources, has nearly wiped those shipments off the map. The result? A domestic market starved for product while outside supply is choked off. Rising prices were inevitable, and you, the consumer, are feeling it more than anyone else. There is no sign that this trend will ease in September. On the contrary, experts predict ground beef prices could climb another 5 to 7% by the end of the year as weather and policy pressures continue to bite. In the meantime, a small decision today could make a big difference tomorrow. If you have freezer space, do not wait. Buy pure ground beef, portion it out, vacuum seal, and freeze it. It may not change the world, but at least you will not be paying more tomorrow for the exact same thing. Have you noticed how much beef prices around you have changed over the past 3 months? And what is your plan if they keep rising next month? Share your thoughts in the comments, because chances are your story is also the story of millions of others. Number 2, coffee. Do you remember your first cup of coffee today? Not the bitterness, not the aroma, but how many scoops did you use 2-3? Or have you quietly started using less without even realizing it? Rising coffee prices are forcing millions of Americans to adjust their habits. Not because they want to, but because they have no choice. Coffee is not a luxury, yet it is quietly turning into one of those hard-to-control expenses in the monthly budget. And the scariest part, nobody is talking about it. No news outlet is warning you that your morning cup of coffee is now eating up an extra 20% of your budget every month. Do not believe it. Take a closer look at the can of coffee you just bought at Costco or Walmart. You probably think it is the same as before. But the truth is, the weight is smaller, the scoops are fewer, and maybe the taste feels weaker too. This is not a mind trick. This is shrinkflation, working its way into every bag of coffee, every brand big or small across the country. Companies are not raising prices, but they are putting less product into each can. And by doing that, they make you pay more for the same habit. Meanwhile, the global coffee supply has not recovered from a string of extreme weather events in Brazil and Central America. Shipments are delayed, demand is steady, and companies are optimizing costs by cutting back on the customer. Not just once, but steadily week after week. Now you see why you have to restock your coffee earlier each month than you expected, and it is not stopping there. Retail chains have already begun adjusting their distribution systems. Some types of dark roast and whole bean coffee are falling into temporary out-of-stock status in many rural and suburban areas, where families tend to buy in bulk for the month, which means you are not only paying more, but you might not even be able to get the kind you want, even if you are willing to pay the price. So how do you avoid being caught off guard? It is not about buying everything in sight. It is about buying smart. Get the kind of coffee that actually matches your taste and your daily habit with a long shelf life, something you can store for 2 to 3 months without losing quality, and most importantly, buy it while you still have the freedom to choose, not when the shelves have already been cleared by those who got there first. Check the coffee aisle at your local grocery store. If you see signs of shortages, swapped labels, or quiet price hikes, share it in the comments. Because what you are noticing might be the early signal of something much bigger that is about to spread. Number 3. Potatoes. Have you ever noticed a product go up in price without a single word being said? No warning signs, no adjustment notice, just silence. And strangely enough, that silence is the most dangerous part. Potatoes, one of the simplest staples in the American kitchen, have become one of the clearest examples of this phenomenon. If you cook at home often, especially if you live in the Midwest, you know potatoes are more than just an ingredient. They are the foundation of family meals, from mashed potatoes and fries to soups and classic roasts. And now even that foundation is starting to shake. Since mid-June, many Walmart shoppers have started noticing smaller bags. What used to be 5 pounds is now 4.5 or even 4 pounds. The price, still the same or sometimes a little higher. Has anyone pushed back? No, because this is the silent cutback strategy. You don't see money leaving your wallet, but you are losing exactly what you thought you were still getting. The real danger for potatoes lies elsewhere. U.S. production is dropping sharply due to factors no one can control, like weather and crop disease. This past spring, more than 15,000 acres in Idaho, the nation's top potato growing state, were hit by a bacterial outbreak that caused root rot and plant death underground. Farmers had to destroy tens of thousands of young plants. Meanwhile, Washington and Oregon reported similar issues after an unusually cold, rainy stretch that dragged through April and May. It is not just lower yields. Storage costs after harvest are also soaring. Potatoes need to be kept in coolers at stable temperature and humidity. But with electricity prices climbing especially across the western states, many smaller farms can no longer maintain optimal conditions. The result: large portions of the crop spoil early and get dumped before ever reaching the market. Things are even tougher in the industrial supply chain. Processing plants that make frozen fries and potato products for fast food chains are now scrambling over limited batches of high-quality potatoes. That drives up the price at the source, and inevitably retail prices at the supermarket climb right along with it. What does this mean for you? If you buy potatoes out of habit a few pounds each week to boil, fry, or roast, you may not notice the shift right away, but eventually you will face a choice. Buy less or skip them altogether. Because week by week, the rising price chips away at your grocery routine without you even realizing it. The scariest part: potatoes do not have a long shelf life. You cannot stock up for 3 months the way you can with rice or frozen goods. Which means that if you come across fresh potatoes at a stable price, that is the time to consider buying a little extra. Look for firm-skinned potatoes free from scratches or moisture, since those are in a stable stage and can last 2 to 3 weeks in a cool, dark place. Avoid bags that have already sprouted, because that is a clear sign they will not stay fresh for long. Have you noticed your potatoes running out faster than before? And how much is a pound of potatoes at your local store today? Check and share that number in the comments. Sometimes just by looking at the cheapest item in your cart, you can see exactly how the economy is shifting. Number 4, fresh tomatoes. If you see fresh tomatoes at a reasonable price today, buy a little extra. Don't overthink it. Because just a few weeks from now, you might come back to the produce aisle and see a number that makes you take a step back. Tomatoes are not a must-have like rice or eggs, but they weave their way into almost every meal. Salads, sandwiches, sauces, soups, marinades. Without them, the plate feels dull. But when prices rise, hardly anyone complains. That is exactly why tomatoes are one of the easiest foods to be manipulated, quietly and dangerously. Here's the reality: the fresh tomato market has never been as shaky as it is in the summer of 2025. Some regions are already reporting supply evaporation, especially in local farmers markets and major supermarket chains across the Midwest and Northeast. Why? It is not because people stopped eating them. It is because fewer people are growing them. After 3 straight seasons of hurricanes, unexpected frost, and off-season rains, many mid-sized farms in California, Texas, and New Jersey have switched to lower-risk crops. They can no longer afford to bet on a crop that demands constant care, is prone to disease, and guzzles water the way tomatoes do. That retreat has left a gap far bigger than most realize. On top of that, the cost of labor to harvest tomatoes has jumped 50% in just 2 years. Tomatoes have to be picked by hand at the right ripeness without bruising, something machines still cannot fully do. Without enough workers, many farms simply let ripe fruit fall to the ground. You will not read about this in the news, but you will see it in the supermarket tomatoes that are smaller, softer, spoil faster, and cost more. Even more worrying, premium varieties like Roma heirloom and sweet cherry tomatoes, the ones you often see at Costco, are now being rationed. Some stores have even set limits of just 2 packs per customer because the supply is that tight. Did that cross your mind when you picked up a salad kit for the weekend? And that is not all. As domestic supply shrinks, some retailers are forced to import tomatoes from Latin America, where the climate is more favorable. But imported tomatoes spoil quickly, especially during transport. That means you, the consumer, end up paying more for produce that is lower in quality. It is a paradox. But it perfectly sums up the American food market in 2025. You are not just paying for the product. You are also covering the hidden costs of the instability behind it. So what can you do? Prioritize local tomatoes while they are still in season, especially in August. If you can prep them, blanch, and peel, then store them in containers or turn them into homemade sauce. With just a few steps, you can stretch your supply for the next month. Also examine each tomato closely before buying bright, evenly red firm, but not mushy, free from dents or yellow patches. If you notice trays already showing bruises while still on the shelf, that is a sign the batch won't last long, and a clear indicator that the market is strained. Can you still find fresh tomatoes for under $2.50 per pound at your local store? If so, you are luckier than many shoppers in coastal states. Share the price you see in the comments. It might just be the warning signal someone else needs before they decide to wait a few more weeks. Number 5, eggs. If you've been paying attention, eggs surprisingly are the only item on this list that has actually been dropping in price over the past few weeks. A dozen regular large grade A eggs now runs about $1.80 to $2.20 at Walmart or Kroger. Compared to the peak of $4.60 early last year, that's a number that makes many shoppers breathe a sigh of relief. Some even tell themselves, finally something that isn't getting more expensive. But is that really a good sign? When everything else is climbing, one product that's suddenly cheap can be a red flag. And eggs, ironically, are the most unstable item on this list. This isn't the first time egg prices dropped, only to shoot right back up. Over the past 24 months, eggs have gone through at least 4 major price swings. They weren't tied to seasons or demand, but almost entirely to outbreaks of bird flu. Just one wave of H5N1, like what happened in Iowa and Nebraska late last year, forced tens of millions of hens to be destroyed. That means within days, egg prices in that region can double. Nobody sees it coming. Nobody can stop it. And the ones left paying the price are always the consumers. Because of that volatility, retailers often use today's lower egg prices as a way to pull shoppers in, creating the illusion of stability, sometimes even rolling out hidden promotions. What most people don't realize is that behind those cheap cartons are supply chains that have been cutting corners. Some of today's bargain eggs come from quick recovery farms, meaning they haven't had enough time to rebuild healthy flocks or reach a steady production cycle. In fact, according to a recent state agriculture report, some farms are operating at only 60% of their former output, but still push eggs to market early just to avoid losses. Have you ever bought eggs that spoiled way too fast? Or cracked one open to find a pale, runny yolk? That's not random. It's a sign of a supply chain rushing product out short-term, regardless of quality. On top of that, many farms have shifted from free-range hens to confined caged production to cut costs. It lowers expenses, but the trade-off is weaker nutritional quality and higher disease risks. So yes, eggs may be cheap right now, but it's the kind of cheap that hides plenty of risk. One more thing to keep in mind, even though egg prices are low, at the moment they're unstable. In some states, egg prices have swung as much as 40% in just 1 month, depending on local supply. That means if you're paying $2.20 today, there's a good chance next week you'll see them jump back to $3.50 with no explanation. So should you buy or not? The answer is yes, if you're buying eggs with clear origins produced by farms that have stabilized after recent outbreaks. Prioritize free-range eggs. USDA-certified cartons or major brands that print packing dates and offer a longer shelf life. And if your household goes through eggs quickly, whether for breakfast baking or traditional meals, it's smart to stock up a little now and store them properly in the fridge at a stable temperature. Eggs can stay fresh for up to 3 to 4 weeks if kept correctly. Have you noticed egg prices at your local store shifting over the past month? Have you seen eggs spoil quickly, change color, or smell off? If so, share it in the comments below. You might be seeing the early signs of another price swing. And right now, a little real-world experience is worth more than any warning. At a time when everything seems to get more expensive by the week, preparing a little today can keep you from feeling stuck next month. The 5 foods we've just covered, ground beef, coffee potatoes, fresh tomatoes, and eggs, may seem ordinary, but they're quietly becoming the inflation hotspots of this fall. You don't have to stockpile excessively, but if you can plan ahead and pick up a little extra in August while prices are still manageable, that's a smart move.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.